Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel. The last couple videos we've been talking about Comicsgate and critiquing some of the things that Marvel is doing in their comic books right now from a storytelling perspective. Today I wanted to cover something that I believe Marvel's doing extremely well. Now, I say Marvel, really they've just partnered with Archie Comics, and Archie Comics is being allowed to do this for them, so give the credit to whoever you will with that. But it's still something that I think is a really great source of classic Marvel stories it's new, it's being put out in a great market, and it's a great source for the characters as we know and love them, especially for people who are coming into the Marvel Universe from the films and want to see something in the comic books that correlates with that, because you're certainly not going to find that in the new comics coming out of Marvel these days. And I'm talking about these Marvel Digest issues in front of you. So Archie Comics has been putting out comic digests for years and years and years. I have some examples here. I grew up on these. I love these. Believe it or not, as a writing and literature professor right now, I was actually behind in reading as a child, and they were sending me to summer school, and I just wasn't catching up to the reading. And finally, one of my teachers told my parents, "Look, if they'll read comic books, buy them." And it was Batman '89, that era, and stuff like that. I was about 8 years old, so they bought me any comic books I wanted, and I would love to go take my allowance to the end of the week and go to the comic book store and buy all the Batman and Superman stuff. But those comics were short, they were a little bit more expensive, and my allowance was pretty much gone. But my mother would buy me these anytime we went to the grocery store, just a few bucks. And it's a lot of stories in an Archie's Digest. I mean, and they collect classic stories. So classic stories really from, all the way back to Archie's first appearance, up to new stories as well. We'll come back to this in a second. So Archie's Digests have been coming out for a long, long time, and they'll come out every month or two. They've got a bunch of different titles, Betty and Veronica, Jughead and Archie, a bunch of different titles that they'll put out. And pretty much you've got one at least coming out a month, and they're great sources of classic and newer comics. We'll talk about that more in a second. So Archie's has been a pioneer of that format, and they recently partnered just this past year with Marvel to do the same thing. So the Spider-Man was the first to come out this past July, and it's really great. It starts out with, of course, the classic Stan Lee stuff. Trying to mark some places to show you here. Classic stories. Look at that art. This beautiful art. And this is all beginning, original Stan Lee, Steve Ditko stuff. So it starts out with a few of those stories. We'll go through here and get quite a few of those. You'll see some classic stuff. It ends up with some of the not modern, I would say, but more modern stuff. It goes on through his through his career. So here we have the art's obviously different. We got a more modern style. Apologies to those who are really Marvel connoisseurs. Again, I've been mainly a DC guy growing up, so I'm not as schooled in Marvel's history, but I have come to love the characters and love their comics. Like I said, I went back and started reading the original Marvel Masterworks by Stan Lee and started working my way up through the 70s there. So great collections. Now this Spider-Man one does end in a story by Dan Slott, which is the Ultimate Spider-Man, like from the cartoon, if I can find it there, which I've heard a lot of people talk about the cartoon, how it's not very good. I haven't seen many episodes of it, although if it's got Agent Coulson in it, he's kind of one of my personal heroes in terms of characters, so it can't be all bad. But anyway, so that's about as modern as it goes. It really is classic stuff. And 2 months later, so into September, the Avengers issue came out, and once again the same thing. We've got original Stan Lee, Jack Kirby Avengers, really quite a few of these original stories, and they're just fun. The stories back then, they were building an overall continuity, but it wasn't like it is today, where you buy a $4 issue and it's moves the plot along of the greater continuity like 2 minutes basically. You have to buy like 12 of these overpriced comics to really get any kind of decent story arc. That wasn't the case back then. They had really great contained story arcs even within the issue as they were building on continuity. So I really enjoyed that. And then you got some more modern stuff. You got some of Jeff Parker's Avengers and so forth. And what's really cool in here is the great animated Avengers series, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. You got some stories from that as well, which I thought, there it is. They got some of the Disney stuff there later, but the Earth's Mightiest Heroes version from that short-lived cartoon, the comic book tie-ins and stuff like that. So really great stuff. Again, collections of some classic material. Thor just came out this month. It's a December issue, but it's out now, which of course correlates with Ragnarok, which is good marketing there. And as you see, again, the original Thor stories moving right on through to some good Silver Age stuff there, and moving right into some more of the modern stuff. So really, I highly recommend these. They're just a few bucks. I mean, well, maybe more than a few bucks. What does that say there? See if I can get the camera to focus on it. Can't quite get the camera to focus, but this is, yeah, there you go, $6.99. So, still, that's pretty good for as many stories as you're getting. The cool thing about these two is that they're available in the grocery stores. Now, they weren't available in many grocery stores right off the bat. I go through my travels and my commutes to work and whatnot every week, takes me through around about 4 different Walmarts, in 1 week, and only one of them has ever consistently had these on sale when they come out. I'm seeing them more now. I did see them in a Food Lion the other day. The cool thing about that is that they're available for more people. So, a very specific type of person goes to a comic book store. Your average person who just enjoys the movies, certainly a lot of your children who could get into comic books don't necessarily go to comic book stores if their parents aren't into it or whatever. So that's what's so cool about these. They're available to a new readership there. They're the classic stories. They're ways to get into the classic tales and the heroes as we know them, especially from the films for those, like I said. So it's a great jumping on point there in a way to really bridge to a new audience, which is wonderful. It's such a shame, of course, that they're not, producing these kind of stories in the new Marvel comics. That's going to bite them, of course, eventually. But it's cool that they have these. Coming up next, at the end of each issue, they tell you what's next, and I'm very excited because look, the X-Men, and that's the Chris Claremont, I think it looks like that era right there, coming from the originals or whatever. Again, I apologize if you're a X-Men connoisseur. You're probably face palming right now if I got something epically wrong there. But anyway, a really cool format and really great books, well worth the money. I highly recommend them. The only one thing I wish they would do, I think it's a really lost opportunity that they're not doing this, and maybe it's because they're just letting the Archie Comics do it and release them, and not Marvel's not having a lot to do with it. But the thing about the Archies is that the Archie Comics, they recently did a reboot in their main comics, like the main issues you'd buy in the comic shop. They did a reboot, and everything's more modernized, and the art's different, and they're trying to tell some more dramatic stories with longer, story arcs and continuities and stuff. And as I said in a previous video, one of our 31 days of Halloween videos, it's not bad so far. It's it's okay, but it's just a real shame that you lose out on all of these great classic Archie stories that we've loved for so long. Well, the digests that come out are your source for some of the new stories in this classic style. So these will still include all of the classic stuff from way back into the 40s, 50s, 60s, and on. They'll include all the classic stuff and all through the modern day, but they'll also, each issue will have 1 or 2 new stories. So that's a really cool thing. At least you've got one sort of format and one source to find some new stories from the style and continuities that you love. I don't know why they won't do this with the Marvel ones. This seems like such a lost opportunity, especially with all the controversy going around, with all of the people crying out for some more traditional stories and traditional versions of these characters. They're trying to do that sort of with Legacy. Just do them in these, Tell a Spider-Man story which is set back when he was in college at Empire State in the same continuity of the Stan Lee Ditko days there, You don't have to create a whole new universe. You don't have to create a new continuity or whatever. Just tell another standalone story back then. That'd be perfect. Same thing with the Avengers, Tell a story when Cap was newly rediscovered, by the Avengers or such. You can go back and tell some of these classic stories from older classic continuities and not mess up anything they think they need to be doing now or whatever. So just wanted to let some people know about these who might not. I know that when there was announced that they were doing these, it was kind of a buzz and there was a lot of news about it, but I honestly haven't heard anything about this since they've been released. I haven't really seen any YouTube reviews. I'm sure they're out there, but I just haven't seen them, and I don't really hear anybody talking about these. And they're a lot of fun for the classic stories and for loving these classic characters and for the stories you miss and the versions of their characters you miss. Definitely recommend picking these up. I imagine you can order the ones you've missed. Thor is still out in the stores now, so go check out a Walmart or a grocery store or whatever. Check the magazine aisles or the aisles near the registers, and you'll see the digest there. And I'm sure you can catch these online somewhere, the ones you missed. But it's good. X-Men's coming out next. I'm really excited about that. They seem to be coming out about every other month. I think there was a 2-month gap, at least in the release date that's printed on this one, even though it's coming out in November. Anyway, about every other month. I definitely recommend them, and let me know what you think. If you've already read any of these or if you've picked them up, what do you think about this digest format? Do you think it's a good idea? I would love to see DC do this with some of their classic stories, even though I love what DC's doing right now in their Rebirth initiative for the most part. I am collecting and buying a lot of their titles right now. I would still like to see some of their classics. I think this is a much better idea than that stupid thing they're doing where they collect like 5 comic books in a mystery bundle, and they show you like the one cool comic book in the cover, and then the rest of them are just, kind of crap comics from the New 52 or something, Marvel's doing that too, but I think this is a much better idea and a much better way to gain new readers and make some money. So I like it. What do you think? I'd love to know your thoughts on this. If you think this is a good marketing move, if you've read through them, if you like the way they're put together, what do you think about maybe having some of the new stories set in these older continuities? This would be one place they could at least point readers who are complaining and crawling out for this kind of stuff. And I'll be back soon for another critique, analysis, commentary, whatever it is I feel like doing. Until then, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the superhero stories you love. Thanks for watching.